MazzaOnSports here. It's Evan Mazza here. As always, we have a lot to get into today. We're talking NFL, we talk Major League Baseball, talking the Ravens, the Jets, MLB playoffs. The playoffs are currently going on right now. It looks like the Seattle Mariners are about to take a 2-0 lead over the Toronto Blue Jays as they're currently up, I believe, 10-3. They're on commercial break going into I think the top of the ninth. So the Mariners are about to go up 2-0. Very surprisingly to me in that series against the Toronto Blue Jays. And then you have a couple of Monday Night Football games on tonight. We got the Bills and the Falcons. The Bears and the Commanders are about to kick off. So a lot going on tonight, but we got a lot to get into. We're going to talk Ravens. We're going to talk the Jets. We'll talk about the playoffs. We'll also get into a little bit of pro wrestling. We'll talk a bit about the Yankees, talk about the Mets, and so on and so forth. And Pete Alonso's contract. A couple report a few days ago about Pete Alonso and his contract demands, or what he's looking for in a new contract. So a lot to get into today on the show. Got a lot to catch up on. I guess we got to start off with the Ravens because I think what made this loss frustrating against the Rams is not that they lost. It's the fact that this was a game that they should have won. This is a game they should have won. The injuries, sure. Cooper Rush, sure. But this was a game you should have won. You ran the football really well for the first time since really, I don't know, week 2, week 3. For the first time since, you really ran the football really well. You ran the football well. But it was a combination of penalty, and your defense played well. Your defense was pretty good. Your defense played well. Your defense played well for the first time since week 2 against Cleveland. For the first time, and against a good team, against a good Los Angeles Rams team and a good Rams offense. And you played really well against them. And I think that's what makes the loss a little bit more frustrating, is that you had the Bears about to get the ball first. Falcons are up 21-7 over the Buffalo Bills. That's a wow. We need to talk about the AFC. We really need to talk about the AFC. But the Bills are up 21-7. I mean, the Falcons are up 21-7 right now over the Bills. Second quarter, 9:43 to go. Bears, Commanders just kicked off. Mariners, Blue Jays, they're in the top of the 9, 10-3. Seattle. Wow, how about Seattle? But anyway, you look at the Ravens and you go, if they ran for 100+ yards, or Derrick Henry ran for 100 yards, and they had success running the football, and their defense held the Rams to 17 points, you would think they won the football game. But they didn't. Because of mistakes, turnovers, trying to do too much, and just bad game situation management in the red zone, in the goal line. And if you watch the game, you know what I'm talking about. They ran it to Derrick Henry on 1st and goal, got to the 1. This is a 3-3 game. 3-3 game. 1st and goal at the 1-yard line. Ran it for Henry, got to the 1. So it's 2nd and goal at the 1. They then proceed to rush 2 tush pushes. Not 1, but 2, with Mark Andrews, by the way. Not Derrick Henry. Right? It is not new, though. That's what they've done over the years. It's a tight end sneak with Mark Andrews. But this was, kind of the first time they really implemented like a tush push factor to it. But that's usually how the Ravens operate. It's Mark Andrews who does the tush push, in a sense. He carries the ball under center. But they did it twice, and they missed. They got stopped. So then on 4th down, you then decide to give it to Derrick Henry. When, by the way, the entire Rams offense knows you're going to give the defense knows you're going to give it to Derrick Henry. They got stopped. Guess what? They got stopped. And that was the game right there. That was the game. If you couldn't get it into the 1-yard line at home, you're not going to win that football game. You're not going to win it. And that's what happened. They didn't win. But that was the turning point. And you had Cooper Rush throwing another interception. Cooper Rush eventually got benched for Tyler Huntley. And Tyler Huntley played admirably the last, drive or two that he was in. He played admirably, you know. Um, there was Zay Flowers who fumbled, because he's trying to do too much. Just a couple of bad penalties, just a lot of mistakes on the team, especially on offense. But it was really the goal line right there. That was the whole football game right there. The Rams took advantage of it. They scored in the second half. Before you know it, they're up 17-3, and the game was over. Huntley was able to drive them into the red zone, but they didn't score. But the whole sequence there at the goal line, that was just inexcusable. If you want to try the tush push thing, fine, try it once. But you got Derrick Henry in the backfield, man. And he's rolling. This is the best Derrick Henry has looked probably all season, maybe at least since before the first game of the season against Buffalo before the fumble, because he played great. He was playing great in that game against Buffalo before the fumble. But you had you just give it to him the next time. If you didn't get the tush push, just give it to Derrick Henry. Or at least just give it to him again when he's rolling. But you didn't. It was just Todd Monken overthinking it, John Harbaugh overthinking it, and then ended up hurting them and costing them the game. And as much as flack as John Harbaugh is getting right now from Ravens fans and the media, as much as Zachary Orr's flack that Zachary Orr is getting from Ravens fans, Todd Monken deserves a lot of criticism too. And I wrote an article about it for Fansided before the game. Todd Monken deserves just as much criticism as the other two. He has been awful this year in terms of play calling, schematics, the system-wise. Even with Lamar Jackson, there was some struggles on offense. Sometimes, like I said, sometimes it didn't really show because you saw the points, but you could see it, whether it was the last several minutes of the Bills game or the first half of the Browns game, the entire game with the Lions and the Chiefs. You've seen the offense show its fair share of struggles. Not as much as the defense, of course, but you've seen the offense have its fair share of struggles, even with Lamar under center. And a lot of that falls on Todd Monken. So he deserves his fair share of criticism as well, Todd Monken. And that at the goal line with, no less of your, you could say no less than your season on the line, because 1-5 is a tough hill to climb up from, even with getting these guys back. But I still do think they can make a season out of it, but they have to win 6 in a row, as I said a few days ago, last week. But you got to score there. If they score a touchdown there, I think they win the game because momentum's on their side. They're running the football. Defense is playing good. I think if they score there and they get up 10-3 or so at the half, I think they win. And all of a sudden, we're talking about a different kind of season here. You'd be 2-4. You get a win. You're after the bye. You're after the bye. You're heading into the bye week. With Lamar coming back and Roquan coming back, and you had Kyle Hamilton, and you had Marlon Humphrey came back on Sunday. You get more guys back, and you with a favorable schedule. Hey, it makes turning the season around a little bit easier. But because you couldn't get in from 1 yard with number 22 in the backfield, or even maybe a QB sneak with Cooper Rush, or even a play action with Cooper Rush to find Mark Andrews or Isaiah Likely. But you had, again, there were things you could do, but you chose 2 straight tush pushes. You chose 2 straight tush pushes. Sorry. You chose 2 straight tush pushes. And then you decide to give it to Derrick Henry when the Rams know you're giving him the football. They know after 2 straight times you didn't give it to him. They're giving it to him. And that's where you got to criticize Harbaugh, and that's where you got to criticize Tom Monken. It was just not very smart football. And again, yeah, the players aren't, sure, the starters aren't there, but the coaches have to put your players in good positions to win. Gosh, the San Francisco 49ers right now are winning football. They didn't win yesterday, but they competed and played the Tampa Bay Buccaneers tough with Matt, and they've won games with Mac Jones at quarterback. You know, there should be no reason for the Ravens coaching staff, for as good as it is, to not put up a smart game plan or even a competitive game plan with players with your players that, with your backups or depth players or whatever you want to say or whatever. You've got to put up a better game plan than that. And you've got to put up a better strategy than that. You've got to. So when they lost that game, when they got stopped, that was it. That was, you knew the Rams were going to win. You knew the Rams were going to win because when you make a stop like that by the Rams, all the momentum is on your side. And the Rams took that momentum and won the game. And now you're 1-5. You're 1-5 at the bye week, and you're betting on Lamar Jackson to come back and save the day, right? And look, Bears up 3-0 on a field goal right now. I understand that. He's great. And look, the Ravens, with the returns of Lamar and Roquan, have the potential to get back in this with their favorable schedule. But like I said last week, now you really have to win all 6 of these games. And it really stings because on Sunday, that was a game you should have won. The Lions, you just got beat. The Chiefs, you just got beat. The Texans, you just got beat. But this game, this was the one you had to have. This was the game you had to win, especially with the way things are going. With your defense playing solid and Derrick Henry running the football. That was the game out of all this stretch of losses, the 4 in a row that they've lost, this was the one you should have won. It was playing out that way, and you didn't. And Cooper Rush got benched, and they put in Tyler Huntley. And Harbaugh had this thing where he was like, well, I was thinking about putting them anyway. And I'm like, no, come on. You put in Tyler Huntley with what? Down 17-3 with what? 8 minutes left? No, you decided to. That wasn't a thing where you go, I was going to do 2 quarterbacks. No, you put in Tyler Huntley because you felt like you needed a spark. That's fine. That's fine. I understand that, but just say it in the press conference. Don't just say, we were trying to do 2, I had that, I was, 2 quarterback thing anyway. No. You benched Cooper Rush because he wasn't giving anything. So you want to put in Tyler Huntley to give you a spark. And also the crowd was also calling for Tyler Huntley and they were booing Cooper Rush. Look, I feel for Cooper Rush, and I feel for Tyler Huntley as well, because this is just, again, a bad stuff right now. I feel for those two. But, it is, but the game was lost for the Ravens right there. And this is the Baltimore Ravens. Man, your identity is running the football. Run the football at the 1-yard line. Pound it. Physical, tough. That's the Baltimore Ravens for 25 or so years. At the 1-yard line, you run the football. But you chose 2 tush pushes, you got cute, and then on 4th down, then you decide to run the football when the Rams know you're running the football. Just a bad loss all around. Just a bad stretch of games as they enter the bye week. I don't expect much changes. Heck, Zach Orr's defense didn't play a bad game at all, so you're not going to fire him after a decent game. You're still not going to fire Todd Monken or anything because Lamar's coming back. So no coaching changes are going to be, and no, they're not firing John Harbaugh, or at least mid-season. But now you have to win 6 in a row. Now you're going to have to win 6 in a row. Can the Ravens win 6 in a row? Of course they can. A, the schedule favors it, and B, they're still a very talented football team with a top 5 head coach and a top 5 returning quarterback. But they're going to have to mesh together as a team. Lamar, of course, can't do it by himself, and no one can do it by themselves. But the Ravens are going to have to play as a team. You're going to have to carry your defense the way you played Sunday into the next 6 or so weeks. And your offense has to just run the football. And your offensive line has got to play better. The O-line has got to get healthy, and they got to play a lot better than they played all season to this point. But this was a tough loss because, they came into this one as big underdogs at home, and they almost had this one. They really should have won. This was a game you're going to look back on and say, man, we let that one go. That's a tough one to lose. Detroit, Kansas City, Lions, Chiefs, Texans. Boy, how about the Chiefs beating the Lions yesterday? Wow. But those games you got beat. But this one, that should have been a win. And they're going to look back on. And so now comes the toughest road, the battle back into the playoff picture. An AFC playoff picture that is a befuddled mess right now. Like I said, the Bills are down 21-7 to Atlanta at the 2-minute warning right now in their game against the Falcons. The AFC playoff picture is a jumbled mess right now. We don't know. The Colts are 5-1 and are the AFC number 1 seed. The Jaguars just lost to Seattle. And Seattle's good, but still, they were a 4-1 team coming in at home, and they lost to the Seahawks. The Bills are getting beat right now by Atlanta 21-7. And then, of course, there was the Chiefs who beat the Lions last night in Kansas City because, it's what they do. But this is a jumbled mess. The Broncos, will get to the Jets, should have lost to the Jets last night. They should have lost to the Jets, but the Jets, we'll talk about it in a second, but the Broncos should have lost to the Jets. The AFC is a mess. The Chargers almost lost to Miami yesterday. The AFC is all over the place. So the Ravens can still get back in this thing, but that requires them to go on a winning streak of 6 games in a row. So can they? Of course they can. Of course. And that's what we're all betting on right now. Every game for the Ravens from here on out, or at least leading up to that December 7th game against the Steelers, is the season. Starting from the bye week, I believe their first game is against Chicago at home, who are currently playing the Commanders right now. They're up 3-0. Intercepted. Jaden Daniels got intercepted. He was going for a touchdown pass, and then the Bears just picked it off. 35-yard line. So Bears, they're at Miami, at Minnesota, at Cleveland. They'll get the Bengals. They'll get the Jets. So, you have an opportunity to get back in, but that requires for you to play good football for 6 consecutive weeks. And the Ravens haven't played good football for 2 consecutive weeks. So it starts Sunday against the Bears. After the bye, go from there. 1 game at a time, 1 quarter at a time, 1 play at a time, and hopefully 1 win at a time. So, but this was, like I said, tough loss because this should have been a win. And that would have been a good win at home against a good football team with your backup quarterback. Hey, you got to win and get games with the backup quarterback, The Ravens literally won a Super Bowl 25 years ago with a backup quarterback being implemented as a starter in Trent Dilfer. The Ravens made the playoffs in 2003 with a backup quarterback in Anthony Wright. The Ravens know a thing or two about winning games and making the playoffs and having success with a backup quarterback. Ryan Mallon in 2015. The Ravens know it. Look, it's, in 2022, just a few years ago, after Lamar got hurt, Anthony Brown and Tyler Huntley making the playoffs with those 2 guys. You got to win these games. Sometimes you got to win a game or 2 with a backup quarterback or so. Look at what the 49ers have done with Mac Jones. So look at what the Vikings did. Sam Darnold was their backup quarterback last year. And then subbing in for J.J. McCarthy, who got hurt, he had to be up as a starter. He goes on the run he had last year. Now he's back. He's implemented as a starting quarterback again from after last year with Minnesota. He becomes a starter again. Now he's a starter in Seattle with the Seahawks, and he's doing a good job. So you got to win games with a backup. And this was the game that they should have won with their backup quarterback in Cooper, whether it was Cooper Rush or Tyler Huntley. This was the game that they should have won here with their backup. So, so this is a game they should have won. But we'll see how they do after the bye week. Because again, there's a lot of things they have to go through if they want to turn the season around. On to the Jets. Speaking of the Jets, where do we go? Again, it's almost the same question. Where do we go from here? What do we talk about? What do you want to quote Cody Rhodes? So what do you want to talk about? Again, for the fourth game in the first six, this is the fourth one. I counted 4 that they should have won. They should have beaten the Steelers on week 1. They should have beaten Miami on Monday night. They should have beaten Tampa Bay, and they should have won this game yesterday morning or yesterday afternoon in London. But again, it's the same thing. Penalties, lack of cohesion on offense, pass protection, ineffective quarterback play, no turnovers, but still, again, I mean, the tone was set for the Jets in their first couple of offensive drives because you got the opening kick because you got a fumble on the Broncos' first drive, and you only got a field goal out of it. As a matter of fact, you went three plays, 1 yard on offense, got a field goal. And then you got a great kickoff return, which you proceeded to get, no yards and a 3 and out? The tone was set for the Jets right there in the first quarter because you should have scored a touchdown or something. Get something going on offense when you get momentum, but you didn't. You didn't. They took the lead, the Jets, 11-10 on a safety, on a holding in the back of the end zone from the Broncos, and it resulted in a safety. Justin Fields, I like Justin Fields. I do. And I don't blame him entirely for what's going on. The Jets have the most predictable offense in terms of, or I shouldn't say predictable. They have an offensive system that just doesn't fit their quarterback. They don't. You're asking Justin Fields to sit back, drop back, and throw the football from the pocket. Justin Fields is a guy who should be running around, roll him out, get him on the move, play action, let him utilize his legs. That's his strength. Heck, call QB draw with him, QB options, RPOs, anything to get him moving and to get him to use his legs. You clearly want to be, and I agree, a running football team. You clearly want to be, and I agree, a running football team. I said that at the beginning of the season or during training camp. You want to run the football, and that's understandable. But you also need to run the football with Justin Fields, and the Jets for some reason refuse to design runs for him. He has to run it himself if the play isn't there. They do for all of Justin Fields' struggles, and I'll get to it. I don't particularly blame him all that much because I think he's in a system that is just not fitting him right now, or with a offensive coaches that just don't know how to utilize him properly. So I don't blame him entirely. Negative 10 yards. Hey, he deserves all the criticism in the world for that. He deserves all the criticism for his struggles. But I don't blame him entirely because he's in a system that just doesn't fit him. And he's in offensive coaches that just don't know how to use him. You've got to get him moving. You got to get him moving. Move him around. Let him utilize his legs. Let him make a couple of throws outside the pocket. Something. Let him QB draws and options. Something. So now on to his struggles. Yeah. Yes, he does need to see the field better. Yes. He needs to let go of the ball. Fine. Yeah. That's all well. He needs to let go of the ball. He needs to throw the football. And now, after his performance on Sunday, you got Aaron Glenn defending him, which is totally fine, of course. And the Jets, the thing is, the thing is with Justin Fields is he's not a, you don't have a backup, a rookie backup behind him that you can sit him for. Now the players, this is a report by Connor Hughes just today that came out this morning after Aaron Glenn's presser. The players want Tyrod Taylor to play. The players apparently want Tyrod Taylor to play because they feel like they give him the best chance to win. Understandable, fine. Of course the player's going to feel that way. When you're 0-6 and you're watching your quarterback have negative 10 passing yards and you're not getting anything out of the passing game to the point where the Jets clearly don't trust Justin Fields passing the football. Yeah, the Jet players are going to be like, all right, well then put Tyrod Taylor quarterback then. Put him in a quarterback. Let him play. And at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if Tyrod Taylor is named the starter at some point. But the thing is, it's not like the Jets have any reason to rush. Remember, they only signed Fields to a 1-year deal, and they're already 0-6. You sign Fields in hoping that he would be a quarterback that could possibly be a guy for, you're hoping he'd be Sam Darnold, right? You're hoping he'd be Baker Mayfield. You're hoping he'd be Jared Goff. That's what they were hoping for. And unfortunately through the first 6 games of the season, you're not getting that. But that's the thing. You could still start him, keep starting him, and hopefully he can turn it around. With no, you have every leverage to do that. But, you don't have a rookie quarterback you can just bench him for and sit him and start him. You don't have a rookie quarterback, because you didn't draft one this year, which is understandable, all right, fine. You didn't like the rookie quarterback class, fine. That's your prerogative. But you didn't draft one. You signed Fields and you signed Taylor. Okay. I think the Jets should just ride with Justin Fields and just let him play and just make him more comfortable, coach up to his strengths. But I do, that's what I would do if I was the Jets. But I think they're going to probably bench him for Tyrod Taylor pretty soon. They play this Sunday against the Carolina Panthers, who are just coming off winning over the Dallas Cowboys. I believe it's at MetLife. Pretty sure it's at MetLife. Let me just double check that. Yes, it is at MetLife Stadium. It's at home. The thing is, unfortunately, Garrett Wilson is now hurt. He's out for a few weeks, so that's a stinger. But I wouldn't be surprised if they do make a move to bench him for Tyrod Taylor pretty soon, especially if Fields doesn't play. I mean, geez, they're coming back home. All the criticism on Fields, just coming off a net 10 passing yard game, coming back home. If he struggles again, the fans are going to boo him, and they're going to be calling for Tyrod Taylor right there. So I hope Justin Fields has a better performance this Sunday, because the fans are not going to be happy if things are going bad. And this is already an unhappy fan base. But this is, again, this is a tough spot for the Jets. And now you've got Breece Hall and Jermaine Johnson doing the old cryptic tweets, cryptic Instagram posts, cryptic this, because it's trade deadline season. They're on 1-year contracts, and they probably want to get traded. Breece Hall posts on Instagram about that says hashtag free 20. You got Jermaine Johnson posting an emoji with the eyebrow raising up thing on Twitter, and there's teams are calling the Jets in trade talks for Jermaine Johnson, but the Jets are apparently asking for a lot in return, which they should. He's a good edge pass rusher. You should ask for a lot in return. But again, this was a game. So these are the kind of things that go along when you're 0-6. And boy, things really took a turn during that first half. During the end of the first half, we got to talk about it. I don't know what that was at the end of the first half. I don't know what that was. All I can see was it was total mismanagement of clock, mismanagement of timeouts, not throwing the football, but also because they just didn't trust their passing game. And I'll tell you, that is not ideal for a 2-minute offense trying to score points before the half when you have 2 or 3 timeouts or over with 3:30 or so left in the half. You should have tried to score, but they ran and did a fake punt, and they still ran the football, and they just let the clock go. And Garrett Wilson Dude's a competitor. He wants to win. He has been a part of Jet teams that have done nothing but lose ever since he's been drafted here. After coming from Ohio State to the Jets, Ohio State program that wins to the Jets. I understand completely. I understand completely him going to Aaron Glenn saying, "Hey, man, we got to score there. We can't be doing that." And I'll tell you from Aaron Glenn, I like him. But doing something like that, that's a way to lose a locker room. That whole first half, that's a way to lose a locker room. Because let me tell you something. The players want to win. Doesn't matter if they're 0-6 or 6-0. They want to win. And no team wants to go through almost a month and a half or almost 2 months into the season without a win. It is hard to win in the National Football League. It's one of the hardest things in sports is to win a game in the National Football League. The Jets don't like losing. These players don't want to lose. They want to win. No matter what their record is, they want to win. And someone like Garrett Wilson, who's been a part of some awful teams, wants to win. So when he's 0-6 or 0-5, about to be 0-6, and he sees his head coach not trying to score points, yeah, he's going to be frustrated. And I agree with him being frustrated. And if you're Aaron Glenn, you got to talk to him after that, or at least this week, and say, "Hey, man, look, I understand, where you're coming from. I understand your point of view. We'll be, let's be better together and let's try to win." That's because Aaron Glenn, man, that is a way to lose the locker room when you have an offensive drive like that. And that is also a way to lose a fan base that was actually really excited to have you, to bring you back, to welcome back a former Jet player who was drafted by the Jets, who was part of a team like the 98 team that went to the AFC Championship game, that wanted to win. That wants to win, that is competitive. They expect better from you. They don't want to see you just not try to score. No, they don't want to see that. So again, Aaron Glenn, that's got to be a learning lesson for you, man. If you want to be a head coach in this league for a long time, especially for the Jets, that's got to be a learning lesson for you. And Garrett Wilson, and listen to your player, because Garrett Wilson, he's frustrated, and they're all frustrated. But again, now the Jets are facing the Carolina Panthers Sunday at home. Play hard, man. That's all I got to say. And just play to win. As to quote Herm Edwards, you play to win the game. Put that on a board for the Jets. You play to win the game. Play to win. That's all I could take away from that, from the end of that first half to the Josh Allen got intercepted. Wow. Josh Allen got intercepted with 7 seconds left. Falcons have 2 timeouts. They're up 21-7. The Falcons could get a field goal and go up 24-7 at the half. We'll see what they do. But Allen just threw a pick. The Bears, off that interception on Jaden Daniels, are up 6-0 on the Commanders with about a minute left in the first quarter. So, and now you got tension again going on. And now you got all this tension on the Jets about the quarterback situation and Jermaine Johnson, Breece Hall, and Aaron Glenn. These are just not things you wanted this season. If you're going to be bad, fine. But it's these kind of things these kind of things that Jet fans have been so familiar with over the years. You didn't want this. And unfortunately, you're getting it again. They need a win bad. So we'll see what they do on Sunday against Carolina. But just an ugly, ugly performance, an ugly, ugly game yesterday morning or yesterday afternoon in London. It's just an ugly, ugly game. And a game, again, they should have won. It's really bizarre. And a little to know that as bad as the Jets have been, 0-6, they are still close. Oh, they're reviewing the interception. They are so close to being 4-2. Isn't that freaky? For as bad as they've been, the penalties, the turnovers, the bad offense and quarterback play, they are still a play or so away, or just a few things away or whatever, from being 4-2 and in the play. Actually 4-2. And if the Falcons win this game, tied for first place. That is how close the Jets are. It's so weird. I know, but look at the games. Look at Pittsburgh. Look at Miami. Look at Denver. Look at Tampa Bay. Those 4 games all should have been Jet wins. And they'd be 4-2. And if Atlanta wins right now, they'd be tied for first place. They wouldn't have first place because Buffalo beat them in week 2, but they'd be tied. That's how close they have been. That's the weird part. For all the bad we've seen from the Jets, they have still been that close to having a winning record after 6 games, and they'd be the toast of the town right now. Them and the Giants, because look at the way the Giants are playing. And I'll tell you, that's got to sting. If you're the Jets and if you're a Jet fan, that has got to sting. To know that you're losing and you're can't say crosstown rivals, but your in-state share the same stadium rival, all of a sudden they're showing some hope. They're giving their fan base a reason to be excited. They're giving their organization a reason to be excited. Jackson Dart is playing good football. They got Cam Scatterbo. They'll get Malik Neighbors back next year. Brian Burns is playing great. Kayvon Thibodeau. Lawrence. Hey, the Giants are now a team that you want to watch now. Now you're curious about the Giants. You want to watch them now. I watched them on Thursday night against the Eagles last week. That was a lot of fun. That was fun watching them. This Giants team should be 3-3 because they should not have lost to the Saints the other day, last week. They should not have lost that game. What was it, 4 or 5 turnovers against the Saints? If they played a clean football game against a bad Saints team, they are 3-3. And they'd be 3-0 with Jackson Dart. So think about that too if you're the Jets. You got to play better than this. And man, they're so close to 4-2. That's 15, 10, 5, touchdown Falcons with 10. Wow. The Falcons just scored on a touchdown pass with 10 seconds left in the half. How in the world does that happen to the Bills defense? A 40-yard touchdown pass by Drake London. 27-7 Atlanta. Wow. Let's take a look here. Does Drake London score? No, he stepped out of bounds. They're going to overrule this. He did. He got pushed out of bounds just as he reached the pylon. Boy, that was close, though. It looks like they're going to overturn this, though. But boy, that almost was a disaster for the Buffalo Bills in a game that's already, they took the score off. Are they going to rule it a touchdown? Nope, it's not a touchdown. He stepped out of bounds, 21-7 Atlanta. Wow, that great effort, great play by Drake London. Well, they ruled it a touchdown. They did rule it a touchdown? Did they rule it a touchdown? Oh, they're going to look. Okay. So they're looking up, touchdown Caleb Williams. All right, looks like they're going to. All right, so they're going to look at it, but I think he stepped out of bounds, though. Caleb Williams just scored a touchdown. It's now 12-0 Chicago against the Commanders. But yeah, if you're the Jets, you got to play with pride, man. And you got to be better. And if you're the Jets offensive coaching staff, I need to see better from you. I need to see better game planning. And if you're going to keep playing Justin Fields, you got to play to his strengths. If not, then just start Tyrod Taylor. So the ALCS and NLCS is underway. The Mariners are surprisingly up 2 games to none. I thought Toronto would really kind of beat them in 5 or 6. I thought they'd beat them in 5, actually, because I thought the Blue Jays just overmatched the Mariners. But the Mariners have come in. Yeah, it's not a touchdown, so it's 21-7 Falcons against 21-7 Falcons at halftime. But great effort by Drake London. The Mariners have Blue Jayed the Blue Jays. They've out-hit them in their own stadium. The same way the Blue Jays did to the Yankees in the division series, the Mariners have done that to the Blue Jays in the first 2 games. And now, they have taken the first 2 games at Rogers Center heading back to Seattle. That is huge if you're the Seattle Mariners. NLCS is on today for Game 1, Brewers-Dodgers. I know the Brewers went undefeated against the Dodgers in the regular season, but this is a whole different ball game now. This is the postseason. I think the Dodgers win this one in 7. I do think it's going to be a great close series. I do. But I am going to take the Dodgers in 7 in that one. Dodgers and Brewers are scoreless in the bottom of the 3rd. Mariners won that game 10-3. But what I want to talk about is the Yankees. And no, it's not because I'm a Mets fan. I'm wearing a Mets hoodie. No. Don't worry. I'm not going to, scream, nah. Don't worry. I'm not. Because this was yet another season where the Yankees were kind of the same story, right? How many times are we going to see the Yankees win First 2 months of the season, they look at the best team in baseball. Then around early mid-June to like early mid-August, they look like the worst team in baseball. Then around mid to late August, they turn it on, turn their season around, play like the best team in baseball again, and then make the playoffs with 95, 100 wins. Maybe even they win the division. Most of the time they win the division. And they were a game short for winning it here because the Blue Jays had the tiebreaker. And then the playoffs happen. The Yankees and the Ravens are the same. And they have been the same, quite frankly, very weird, for the same amount of time. Think about it. Since 2017, Aaron Judge. Since 2018, Lamar Jackson. Superstar players, the two of the best at their positions, the best in the games. Judge is arguably the best hitter in baseball. Lamar is arguably the best quarterback in football and one of the best NFL players in the league, if not the best. And they have great talented teams around them that are good enough to win a championship. They have great regular seasons, both to win MVPs. Judges won 2 AL MVPs. Will probably win a third in next month. Lamar's won 2 MVPs. You could argue should have won one last year. MVP guys with great teams, talented rosters, great record-breaking great regular seasons where they set records and they do all these things and they win a bunch of games. And then the playoffs come around. And it's been like that for the same period of time. For the Yankees since 2017, the Ravens since 2018. The Yankees and the Ravens are the same thing. It's very much been the same way for them. They're the same. And for the Yankees, it was more of the same this year. They should have lost to the Boston Red Sox. If the Boston Red Sox just would have played good defense and hit runs scoring positions, they would have beaten the Yankees. And I thought after they won game 1 in the wild card and got out of that bases loaded, nobody out jam, I thought the Red Sox were going to win the series. I thought they were going to. But then they made defensive mistakes, and Cam Schlittler had the pitching game of his life, of his young career. And he was fantastic. 12 or 13 strikeouts? He was phenomenal that day. But he was phenomenal that day. But you did see that they should have lost this series. The Red Sox really kind of gave the Yankees this wild card series on a silver platter. And I just didn't think they were going to beat Toronto. Toronto had dominated them all the regular season. The Yankees had won, one game at Rogers Center? One during the regular season? One. And I just don't trust the Yankees in the playoffs. And what happened? The Blue Jays basically dominated. And it wasn't a Yankee playoff loss without a defensive mistake or a defensive error. Jazz Chisholm. He was the guy who made the defensive mistake this time. It's not a Yankee playoff loss without a defensive mistake to really hurt them. And that was Jazz Chisholm, the double play. That should have been a double play, should have been out of the inning, but it was an error, and the Blue Jays ended up capitalizing on it. And it's the same thing year after year after year after year after year. And guess what? They're running it back. Aaron Boone, back. Brian Cashman, back. They're running it again. Again. And it's going to be the same thing over and over and over again. I don't know what else the Yankees have to do. This is a talented enough baseball team to win a World Series. And the sad part is, the biggest sad part is that Aaron Judge was phenomenal. Judge had struggled in all of his playoff appearances. Again, similar to Jackson. But Jackson has had a couple of couple of pretty good playoff games over the last couple of years. But Judge had really struggled in the postseason. But this year, oh man, he was fantastic. He had the best postseason of his career. And if the Yankees would have gone farther, ALCS World Series, Judge could have had one of the best postseasons we've ever seen for a hitter. He was on that kind of pace in the postseason. He was on that kind of OPS average. He was on that kind of pace. It could have been one of the greatest postseasons we've ever seen for a hitter. Especially with how deep the postseason would have been for the Yankees, from the wild card to the division to the world to the ALCS to the World Series. It could have been that kind of postseason. But we'll never know how far it could have gone because the Yankees, again, didn't score runs in scoring position, didn't get starting pitching. Max Fried, another guy, another big-name pitcher that the Yankees get, thinking that's the guy that's going to get us over the top, and he struggles in the postseason because that's what Max Fried does. Max Fried struggles in the postseason. That's what he does. He did that in Atlanta. He struggled in the playoffs. He struggled in the playoffs. We'll get Devin Williams. He'll get us over the top. We'll totally ignore his postseason statistics. We'll totally ignore his Pete Alonso 3-run homer last year. We'll totally ignore that. He'll be great for us. What does he do? Struggles for a large chunk of the season, and then he imploded in the playoffs against Toronto. Same thing. They get Garrett Cole. That's the guy who's going to lead us over the top. He's he's the best pitcher in baseball, and he struggles in the playoffs. And he blows it. And again, not all his fault, but he doesn't cover first base. Not entirely his fault, but he did play a role last year in that 5-0 collapse against the Dodgers when he didn't cover first base. And he struggled and couldn't get out of it when they were up 5-0. But it's the same thing. Bullpen can't get big outs, and the offense, and this time, it's usually like one guy or two guys that do come through. Last year was Juan Soto and Giancarlo Stanton for the Yankees. Usually it's like one guy that does come through or two guys. Like I said, last year was Soto and Stanton. This year was one guy, Judge. Judge would struggle in the previous postseasons. He was really good. He was good. But the rest, Stanton struggled. Bellinger struggled. Didn't get much out of the rest of them. Austin Wells struggled. Trent Grisham struggled. Cody Bellinger struggled. Most of them struggled. Anthony Volpe, of course, struggled. Judge was the only one that performed. He was the only one that did well. The rest of them struggled. And you know what? That's just, again, it's just, this is the story of the Yankees. This has been the story, and at defensive mistakes. But this has been the story of the Yankees for the past almost 10 years now. And losing to the Blue Jays, a team that you've dominated historically for the past 30 years. You've dominated the Blue Jays for the most part, since 1995. You've dominated them. And they came into your house, and yet again, a team comes into Yankee Stadium and beats you in the playoffs. And they got some decisions to make. Stanton, obviously, okay. Fumble? No, okay. And they got some decisions to make. Cody Bellinger's a free agent. Trying to remember who else is a free agent. Bellinger's a free agent. Trent Grisham's a free agent. They'll have to think, obviously they'll get Garrett Cole back next year. I mean, they should have a good 1-2. I mean, they at least on paper should have a good 1-2-3 starting pitchers next year between Schlittler, Fried, and a returning Garrett Cole. So they're and Luis Sills. So so their rotation pretty much is set next year, and that top three should be really good if it stays healthy. But touchdown Commanders, or is he incomplete? Touchdown Commanders, or is it incomplete? They ruled it a touchdown. Jaden Daniel touchdown to make it 13-6 Chicago. Chris Moore. Hey, I think that's Raven Chris Moore. Might be a different Chris Moore. I think that's from a Raven Chris Moore. Might be him. Yep, right foot. Yep, that's a touchdown. But where do the Yankees go from here? We'll see. It'll be interesting. Devin Williams is a free agent. Of course, Paul Goldschmidt's a free agent, of course. What do they do with Anthony Volpe? What do they do there? Are they gonna keep him as a starting shortstop? Are they gonna look for somebody? Jazz Chisholm, of course. What do they do with him? It's gonna be interesting. But they're bringing back the same guys, Aaron Boone and Brian Cashman. Same guys. But it's just 10 years now. 10 years now for the Yankees. I'm not even counting 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14. I'm just counting what I've seen from 2017 since Aaron Judge really emerged to now. So I'm not even looking at 2010, 11, 12, because those were, still, the dynasty teams of Jeter, Posada, Mariano, et cetera. But of course, in the last couple of years of that, and they were able to get that World Series 2009. But I'm just talking from 2017 to now. The last 10 or so years, the last 9 to 10 years. The last 10 years, this is who they've been. A great regular season team that, unfortunately, goes through stretches where they look like the worst team in baseball. And then you go, And then they show that in October. So, and they showed it again here against the Blue Jays. They showed it again, yet again. It's just, I think the difference though here is that I think a lot of people probably looked at that series and said, yeah, Toronto's going to beat them. Because that's how I felt. I think that's how I felt. I think that's how many other people felt. I'm sure maybe even some Yankee fans felt that way going into that series. Like, Toronto's better. We might lose this one. Toronto's better. So it's interesting to see where they go from here, and they're going to run it back again with Boone and Cashman. At least that's what it seems like per reports, and it seems like that's what they're going to do. And all right, I know what 2026 will be for the New York Yankees. They'll make a big move or two in the offseason like they always do. They'll make some big moves. I'm sure they'll look out for big free agents or so. I'm sure they'll be interested in guys like Pete Alonso. We'll get to him in a second. Kyle Schwarber. I'm sure they'll be interested in those guys. They'll make a big signing in free agency. Heck, they could use a closer. They could use a big name closer. If Edwin Diaz does opt out of his contract, if I'm the Yankees, I'd pay him. Plus you get a guy from the Mets. I know the talk will be about Pete Alonso, but I think the Yankees could certainly use a guy like Edwin Diaz. I think the Mets could certainly use a guy like Edwin Diaz, but I certainly think the Yankees could use a guy like Edwin Diaz. Who's their closer? Devin Williams? No. Luke Weaver? More of a middle reliever setup guy. Who's your closer? If I'm the Yankees, if Edwin Diaz opts out, I try my best to sign him. But they'll make a big move or two in free agency, or 3 or 4. They'll make a big move. They'll make their big moves in free agency like they always do. They'll start the regular season and be great. They'll look like the best team in baseball. And Judge will be setting records, and he's on his pace to hit 55 to 60 home runs. And then we'll hit June, and they'll start playing like the worst team in baseball. But then they'll step out of it, and there'll be calls to fire Aaron Boone, fire Cashman. This team sucks, and this team stings, and they're terrible. And then late August, they'll snap out of it. They'll play like the best team in baseball. They'll be great. They might win the division, or at least get a wild card with 95 or even 100, 93 or so wins. They'll make the playoffs, and then they'll lose in the playoffs. That's because that's been the Yankees for the last 10 years. So, speaking of the Mets and Pete Alonso. So, just a little quickly on the Mets and Pete Alonso. Just a little quickly on Pete Alonso, because there was a report that came out a few days ago. If you miss it, check out my article on Mets Memorized Online. I gave Pete Alonso his grade for the 2020-2025 NFL season. I gave it an A. I did have my defensive efficiencies with him, but this was a very good season for Pete Alonso, especially on offense. He was very good. But according to Mike Puma of the New York Post, he's looking for a 7-year contract. Oh, Pete. I love you, dude. We love you. The Mets love you. The Mets are not going to give you a 7-year contract. I hope you know that, Pete. I hope you know that the Mets are not going to give you a 7-year contract. I hope you know. I just hope you know that. Maybe some team will give you a 7-year contract, but I don't think the Mets will. Look, Pete Alonso should in all seriousness, Pete Alonso should look for whatever he wanted. He is a free agent. He's coming off an outstanding year. You try your best to get what you feel you're worth. If Pete Alonso feels he's worth a 7-year, 170, 80, 90, whatever $1 million deal, go out and get it. Go out and get that contract. Go out and get it. He's finally a free agent coming off an amazing year, an amazing season overall compared to last year. Yeah, an amazing season overall compared to 2024 when he hit free agency. But I think you might be a bit disappointed. I think he might be a bit disappointed when he gets free agency and he asks for a 7-year deal. Because I don't think it's tough. He's a darn good hitter. I can't say great. I don't think he's a great hitter. He strikes out too much, and his batting average can range from 240 to 250 to 217 sometimes. He's too streaky. I can't call him a great hitter, but he's certainly one of the best hitting sluggers in all of baseball. He's certainly a throwback kind of hitter. Last year he hit so well. This past year he hit so well, runs the scoring position. So he's a darn good hitter. Darn good hitter, but he's not a great hitter. Too streaky, strikes out a ton. I don't know if any team's going to give him a 7-year deal. I'd be surprised if someone overpaid. I mean, I'd be surprised if any team, let alone the Mets, overpays for him for a 7-year deal. I don't think they see Pete Alonso and go 7-year deal. Freddie Freeman? Oh yeah, they're giving him a 7-year deal like that. Matt Olson? Yeah, they'll probably give him a 7-year deal. How do I know that? Because they gave him those. But Pete is not Freddie Freeman. He's not Freddie. He's not him. He's not Albert Pujols from years ago. He's not Prince Fielder from years ago. He's just not. And if that's what he's looking for, and if he continues to look for that, I think that's going to be out of the Mets' range. But I also don't think teams will pay him that. I don't think teams are going to pay a 31 or so first baseman who has his ups and downs on defense and who struggles to throw the ball at first base sometimes to the pitcher, who has his deficiencies at first base, who struggles at ups and downs in first base, who is a streaky hitter. I don't know if there's many teams in baseball who are going to give him that 7-year contract. That's what he's looking for. It's his free agency. Go out there and try, see if you can get that 7-year deal, my guy. Go out there, it's free agency. But I don't know if he's going to find that. So I definitely don't think the Mets going to give him. And I know Met fans saying, Pete, pay him. Steve Cohen, pay Pete Alonso. Just because Steve Cohen has a lot of money doesn't mean he doesn't see a player and go, I don't know if I want to give you that much. Oh, would he pay Juan Soto? It's Juan Soto. It's Juan Soto. It's Juan Soto. Juan Soto is another level compared to Pete Alonso. It's another level. And I love Pete, but Juan Soto is another level of hitter. So I do think Steve Cohen has his, and again, he'll listen to David Stearns and go, what do you think? And Stearns go, I'm going to give him over 7 years. I think Pete, but again, this is just the beginning of the free agency process. Once the World Series is over, we'll know more. And once we get to the winter meetings, we'll know more, and we'll see how Pete's free agency is going by that point. But we'll see how far the Mets and Alonso are. Are they close, or are they really far apart? Or are they at least here in the middle, which I think is where they are, where they can either get closer or they're going to kind of drift more further apart. We'll find out. But a 7-year contract, Pete, that's tough to ask, especially that's a tough one to ask for Pete Alonso. I don't know if he's going to get a 7-year contract from any team, let alone the Mets. So we'll see with Alonso, but a 7-year contract, that is really tough. Maybe Boston, maybe the Red Sox could give him that contract. I mean, if the Phillies lose Kyle Schwarber, maybe the Phillies, sign him. But then again, Bryce Harper is a first touchdown Buffalo Bills. Maybe Bryce Harper could be moved permanently to DH, or they make a compromise and say, or they come to an agreement and say, Pete, you're going to be the DH most time. Maybe Pete agrees to it, but I don't see Pete agreeing to that. As a matter of fact, I don't even know if Bryce Harper would agree to that. I think Bryce Harper likes playing at first base. So you know what? Maybe not the Phillies. I mean, with Kyle Schwarber entering free agency, maybe the Phillies championship window closing after they lost to the Dodgers, maybe the Phillies could pay him. That's all I'm thinking. I'm just thinking maybe the Phillies pay him over 7 years or a 7-year deal, and maybe him and Harper and them can all get together and see about first base DH, who plays first base more, who's a DH more. But I don't know if Harper wants to go to DH. And I certainly know Pete Alonso right now doesn't want to be a DH. So, but certainly the Red Sox could look to sign him. Maybe the Cubs. The Cubs last year were in a lot of that rumor mill when it comes to Pete Alonso. So maybe the Cubs look to sign him this time. Maybe they give him a 7-year contract. They certainly have money to spend, and the Cubs are coming off a tough loss in the division series to the Brewers. But and you want to make a splash and try to get a little one step closer to the Brewers. But We'll see. I still don't know if any team's going to want to give him a 7-year contract. I don't know. So we'll talk quickly about the LCSs. Mariners, shocked by that. Again, I said it quick. I said it earlier, a little shocked by that, but the Mariners being up 2-0. I didn't think the Mariners had the hitting against Toronto. They certainly had pitching to compete, but I didn't think they had enough offense. But their hitting has been great. Jorge Polanco's off to an incredible start. Jorge Polanco has played great these first 2 games. And the Blue Jays, looked a little bit shell-shocked. 2 straight big losses. Yeah, 2 straight losses where they kind of got dominated at home. At home. The first league championship series at Rogers Center in 10 years, and you come out looking like that, losing 3-1 and then losing 10-3. You score 4 runs after your offense was so good against the Yankees. Really? Man. And I thought Toronto had all the momentum coming in. And Seattle, I didn't think they were that impressive against the Tigers. I didn't think neither them or the Tigers were that impressive. They were just a couple of nights, really 2, because game 1 was yesterday, 2 nights removed from that long 15-inning game against the Tigers where they were able to win that one. I didn't think they would come in and play as well as they have, but they have. And it's the Blue Jays that look a little cold. It's the Blue Jays that came out slumping. It's the Mariners that came out hot. And now you have to wonder, did the Blue Jays put all their might, all their energy into beating their hated rivals, the New York Yankees? Because that is something that teams do. You beat your rival, right? You beat them in the playoffs. And then you realize, we got another playoff series. Look at the Jets in 2010. One of the biggest reasons I think they came off to that slow start in the ALCS championship game against Pittsburgh, that bad first half they had, if you remember, was because they were still riding the high of beating the Patriots in the divisional playoff. Their last playoff win, by the way. They were still riding the high of beating the Patriots in the AFC divisional playoffs. They were still riding the high. And then they came out against Pittsburgh and said, it's the AFC championship game. We have another game to play. And they came out and struggled mightily in the first half. Mightily. And they end up losing the game. But sometimes when you beat your division rival, especially a division rival that has won a lot of games, that has beaten you for the last 30 years, and for the Patriots, certainly it was what? A decade by that point in 2010? For the Patriots, it was a decade by that point. For the Blue Jays, it's been 30 years. 30 years mostly of the Yankees beating you and controlling the American League West. Or the American League East, excuse me. And you beat them. And you dominated them. You beat the Yankees and you won it at their home ballpark. You clinched the division. You clinched the series at Yankee Stadium. And then a couple of days later, you had a few days off, right? You had a few days off because the Mariners were still playing the Tigers. So you had some time off before Sunday. And all of a sudden it hits you, right? Game 1 yesterday probably hit them and said, wait, we have another series to play. We're playing a different opponent here. And the Mariners now catch you off guard. The Mariners now get up front. And they beat you at home, a place that you have been good at all year long. They beat you at home. And now they are going to Seattle, back to their place, with a chance to win the pennant at Safeco Field. I'm still calling it Safeco Field. I know it's T-Mobile Park, but it's still Safeco Field. And the Blue Jays are now left a little like, whoa, whoa, we're down 0-2? Just like that? Whoa. We're 0-2 now? And again, it's just, I think the Blue Jays feeling that right now. I think the Blue Jays are feeling that. And now they got to go into Seattle and beat a red-hot Mariners team, at least 2 out of 3, to force that series back to Toronto. If you can get all 3, great. But you got to force that series now, 2 out of 3, to get at least back to Toronto. But now the Blue Jays have, all of a sudden, all the hype about the Blue Jays, all the hype about the Blue Jays and the excitement of the series win over the Yankees, now all of a sudden, that hype is completely deflated because now you're 0-2. And good on Seattle, man. Good on the Mariners. Impressive job by the Mariners. Very impressive to go out and outpitch the Blue Jays and out-hit the Blue Jays at their own ballpark, at Rogers Center, and now they're up 2-0 in the series. So good on the Mariners. Little quick update on the Dodgers and Brewers series. I think Dodgers in 7. I think this will be a very good, very close series. Still scoreless in the top of the 5th. But I think it'll be a very close, competitive series. I'm going to say, again, I think what's going to win this series for the Dodgers is going to be the Shoheis, the Teoscars, the pitching, Freddie Freeman. I think it's going to be enough to beat the Brewers, but it should be a very fun series. Right now they're tied at 4. They're scoreless right now in the 5th inning at Dodgers. In Milwaukee. In Milwaukee. But should be an interesting series. Like I said, I did say when I started this channel that I wanted to talk professional wrestling, and we're going to talk professional wrestling now. A little quick one, just a little quick notes about professional wrestling, because we had TNA Bound for Glory, and Monday Night Raw we had Crown Jewel Crown Jewel Saturday, TNA Bound for Glory on Sunday, and Monday Night Raw was this morning. It was this morning, 8 o'clock in the morning. Bound for Glory, I thought was a fun show. It was cool seeing Mike Santana. I'll recap Bound for Glory a little quickly. I thought both pay-per-views. I thought Bound for Glory and Crown Jewel both good. I thought Bound for Glory was fun with the Dudleys and the Hardys having a little nostalgia. Again, it wasn't a great match, but it was a fun, nice little nostalgia trip, and that's what it was meant to be. And I thought it was good. And I thought it was a fun time. It was cool to see Mike Santana become the TNA champion. So overall, I thought the show was fine. I thought the show was good. I thought Crown Jewel was good overall. Again, not really anything, it was cool. I guess the one noteworthy thing for me was Bronson Reed beating Roman Reigns. Because I think that was like the one match I looked at and said, all right, that's the one that really one guy really needs to win. Like you knew Seth was going to beat Cody. You knew Stephanie was going to beat Tiffany Stratton. But it was that match. I was like, Bronson's got to win that one. And he did. So good on that. I thought they were both good shows. Now let's get to Raw. Good show tonight on Raw. I thought it was fun. I thought the triple threat main event was good. I thought the stuff with Jimmy Uso and Bronson Reed was good. I thought the stuff with Lyra and Bayley is interesting. I love the segment with Stephanie and Roxanne Perez. And I felt coming in after this pay-per-view, I'm like, you know what? Stephanie needs some opponents. After Crown Jewel, Stephanie needs some opponents. And we're starting it now and building her up against Roxanne Perez. Perfect. Gives Stephanie something to do. Gives Roxanne something. Perfect. Perfect. But we got to talk about the ending. Oh, Triple H, you did it again. The old end credits, and the end credits fade out. And you think the show's over, and then, it's not. He's done it before. Of course, Survivor Series is the one I always will remember with CM Punk and his return. But Punk beats LA Knight, Jey Uso. He's now the number one contender for the World Heavyweight title. The Division come in, they attack. The Division come in, they attack CM Punk. And then the Division, Braun and Bronson turn on Seth Rollins. Yeah, after 6 months, the Vision stable is, that's it. Just 6 months. That's it. Braun turned on Seth. Braun turned on Seth. Bronson lined up with Braun. Paul Heyman lined up with Braun, and that's it, yeah. But seems to be a reason for it. Now, there seems to be a reason for it on Saturday during the match against Cody Rhodes. Seth Rollins appeared to have, it looks like he got injured. It looks like he injured his shoulder on the headbutt coast to coast. Yes, he did a headbutt coast to coast, ladies and gentlemen. And we thought Seth Rollins wasn't this crazy man anymore after he tore his ACL back in 2015. No, Seth Rollins, remember when Dean Ambrose called him a ninja? Yes, Seth Rollins, I guess that ninja is still in him, even after that 20 ACL MCL he suffered over 10 years ago now. But yeah, a coast-to-coast headbutt. He did the coast-to-coast headbutt on Cody Rhodes. He landed awkwardly on his left shoulder. And that's where apparently he got hurt. And there was a picture that was kind of going on. It's being spread online of a fan taking a picture with him. He's eating ice cream. And he does not. It looks like he also doesn't want to take the picture. I mean, that guy's, he just wants to see his ice cream, But he obliged, gave the fan the picture. and you can see him with the sling on his arm. Now, according to PW Insider, reports are saying he's going to be tested over the last week or so. So maybe that was the biggest reason. Maybe they just said, you know what, Seth's hurt. It's been 6 months. We can break the group off now, and go from there. So maybe that's part of the reason. We'll find out. I'm sure there'll be more reports about this whole thing, this breakup of the division coming up soon, in the next day or 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, all week. We'll be talking about this, but it's certainly a surprising move. Very surprising move to break up the division now, even with Seth Rollins' injury, to even break up the division now after just 6 months. And they did clue you in. They were cluing you in on the eventual breakup. Seth's promo at the beginning of the show when he said, I don't need anybody, talking about in the backstage, talking about how it was the peaks, we're at the top, and someone pointed it out that during those segments, the opening segment, the backstage segment, Braun Breaker looked a tad bit annoyed. So, you could see that there was some, they were playing with it of the eventual breakup of the division with Seth's promo at the beginning and then Seth's promo or backstage segment with the division at backstage. They were teasing it a bit. I just didn't think it'd be tonight. Thought it'd be maybe sometime down the road, or sometime after WrestleMania. But no, they broke them up now after just 6 months. So now that adds more intrigue on Raw. Hey, so, it's the thing of wrestling. You watch to hopefully tune in the next week, right? Because it's a week to week, it's a weekly show. This segment like this will want to make you tune in next Monday night. So to see what's, what the next part is, but it's a very surprising move, and you hope Seth's okay. You hope Rollins is all right because he's currently the world heavyweight champion. You hope he's all right, but it's a bummer if he's hurt. It is, because he's the world heavyweight champion. Punk won the match. It looked like we were going to Punk and Rollins again, maybe Saturday night's main event or whatever it was going to be. But if Seth's hurt, if Seth's hurt that much, he might have to vacate the championship. And then what? Do you just do Punk? Do you just do maybe a tournament and Punk gets a bye because Punk is, was already a number one contender? Do you just do Punk and Braun right away at Saturday night's main event? I don't know what you do. Does Seth compete with the injury and then he drops the title, Braun beats him up and rides him off television again or something like that? I don't know. And then Braun faces Punk and Braun beats him. I don't know. I'm curious to see what they do now with the World Heavyweight Championship. If Seth's injury if Seth's injury is going to have to keep him out for a while. But overall, it was a good show. Overall, it was a good show. I thought the main event was good. I thought the Stephanie Roxanne thing was good. I like the Bayley Lyra thing continues to be interesting. And they're going to continue the Maxine Dupree thing. There's going to be an Intercontinental Championship match between her and Becky next week. I'm sure Becky's going to get her win back next week, barring an AJ Lee return and costing her. But I do think Becky wins the match next week and gets her win back from the week before. And then the stuff with the Vision stuff I thought was good, and the breakup was interesting to watch. And now you want to watch next Monday night to see what's next, right? And that's the whole point of professional wrestling. But I thought TNA Bound for Glory was good. Good to see Mike Santana finally win the TNA belt. He should have won at Slammiversary. I thought Crown Jewel was fun. It was fun. Probably better than WrestlePalooza, so I'll give it that. I thought WrestlePalooza was solid, but this show was definitely better. I thought Raw was good. SmackDown was good the other day on Friday. I thought it was good. Raw was also good the other week, last week either. So, and that's the thing. I've seen there are these reports about the shakeup in the creative. Hey, if these last couple of shows are to be watched, and seen, it definitely feels like there were some shakeups in the creative and more adjustments made to creative. And look, there should be. And look, yeah. And so it certainly looks like you're seeing a difference in the program, at least for the last couple of shows. But we'll see. Give it a couple months. We'll see how. Give it a couple months, right? But the Vision stuff. All right, Seth's now on his own again. I think it's gonna be really funny watching him try to team up with Roman and Punk, right? Because they're gonna do a segment or something. They're gonna do a storyline or segment. Seth's gonna try to team up with Roman and Punk, and they're gonna be like, But and Braun and Bronson and Paul, at least what it looks like, are now a team. They're now on their own, at least as a team on their own. But I don't know. I think I think Bronson's fine on his own. Braun, I definitely think, needs Paul Heyman. He's not a very good promo. I'm sorry. When your promos are essentially Scott Steiner, his uncle, that's what his promos really are. They're pretty much his uncle. It's Scott. I do think his promos need to be better. He does work better, I think, with Heyman next to him, and it gives Heyman something. So I would go with Breaker and Heyman together. I would go with Braun and Heyman together and have Bronson be on his own. They could still obviously be a team and form up, right? But I think if you're going to put them separate, put them on their own, because they're both great. They're both great, and they're both our main eventers, in my opinion. And Seth now is on his own as the champion. It's interesting, right? When you think about Seth's history, right? His history with the Vision, his history with the Shield, his history with the Authority. This is the third time he's in a group. Really, the first time leading the group. The Shield, they were kind of all together, right? The Shield, they were all together. There was no really, at first it was Dean Ambrose, but as time went on, it became more of a, we're not all, there's not one leader. We're all together. And he broke up the Shield. It was he who broke them up. Then the Authority, he wasn't obviously the leader. It was Triple H and Stephanie, and Triple H kicked him out, and gave Kevin Owens the Universal Championship. That led to the match with Triple H at WrestleMania. Now here, finally, he's leading his own group. I know there was the Messiah group, but that was, it was Buddy, there was Buddy and Austin Theory and AOP. But he did lead the Messiah, but this was like the big one here. His first big stable he led, the Vision. He's the world champion. He's got Heyman. He's got main eventers by his side. No offense to Theory, no offense to Theory. I think he's a good talent. Certainly no offense to Buddy Matthews. He's great in AEW. I think he's a great talent. But he's got Braun and Bronson by his side, who are two main eventers, two guys who are going to be world heavyweight champions, maybe even WWE champion in terms of bronze and terms of Breaker. Braun is certainly going to be WWE champion one day. He's got Paul Heyman. This is certainly a bigger one that he led than the Messiah stuff. But but as the leader, he's the one that gets turned on. He's the one that gets beaten up. It's his people that he brought in as the leader. They break it up. Like Triple H with Evolution. It was Batista. When it was just Hunter, when it was just Triple H, Ric Flair, and Batista, it was Batista who broke it up. It was Batista. Here, Braun was kind of in the Dave Batista role, or even in the Seth Rollins role from the Shield. But I would say he was more the Dave Batista role. He broke it up. So where does Seth go? Because he's the single guy. He is now on his own as world heavyweight champion without his, what do they call Paul Heyman? The Oracle. Without the Oracle, without Heyman, and without Braun, and without Bronson. Where does Seth go? But obviously the question is going to be his injury. The big question now is going to be his injury. Can he heal? Is he all right? What's the severity of it? We don't know. We're going to have to find out over the next week or two or so. But certainly interesting stuff that came out of TNA and WWE over the last week. AEW, obviously. I thought, again, I think the stuff with Darby and Moxley, I think, has been fine, but it's like you're kind of ready to, you're kind of ready to move on. It's like, all right, let's move on to different things now. I want to see more out of Hangman. I want to see more out of him as the champion. We'll see more. I thought it was an interesting move to make Statlander the champion now. I'm still waiting for Paige to hit his stride as world champion. This is now his second tenure. This is now his second stint as world champion. I'm still waiting for him to really hit his stride as champion. Statlander, I think it was cool to see her win the women's championship, but it might have been a couple of years too late. Mercedes obviously is winning 10 belts, and she's now won her 10th belt. She just beat Riho. You're waiting for her to, again, really get another big feud going with her. So again, we'll see. But I am enjoying AEW. I am enjoying Dynamite to see what they're doing. I am enjoying Dynamite over the last couple of weeks, but obviously the big thing for me is obviously MJF. That's the big one for me, MJF. When is he going to get the championship again? Because I do think, again, I think Page is better as a guy who chases. I think we've now seen it with Page now with 2 reigns, right? With 2 championship reigns. We've seen him now. I think we can say at least in my opinion, he's better as a chaser than a champion itself. And that's fine. Mick Foley was a master at that role. Daniel Bryan was a master at that role, being the chaser, right? Eddie Guerrero, being the chaser, the journey, right, to becoming champion. It's just that when they put the belts on, it's like, you're not really, you don't really know, right? And then when they put the belts on them, it's like, oh, okay. Okay. He's champion. All right. That's why I think, look at me. Mick Foley didn't have long reigns at all as champion. He didn't have long reigns at all, Mick Foley, But Page is better off as a chaser. I think Swerve needs to be champion again soon. But MJF, I think, is the guy who should be champion right now. And Page should be chasing him for the belt, not the other way around. I think Page should be the one chasing MJF for the belt and not the other way around. But that's going to be more, we're going to be talking more professional wrestling, by the way. We'll be talking more professional wrestling. I'm finally going to add it into the show. We're going to add it into these podcasts and these streams. So we're going to talk more professional wrestling as the show goes on, but glad to get into professional wrestling for the first time, really, because I've been meaning to get in. I'm meaning to talk about it and discuss it a bit more. We'll talk about more on Friday, or at least on Friday night after SmackDown's off the air. So we'll do after Friday night. On Friday night, we'll go back on the air. We will do NFL predictions, NFL picks. We'll talk about Raw, and we'll talk a little bit more about Raw. We'll talk about SmackDown, talk about Dynamite for this week. Talk about the MLB playoffs. Get into some Mets rumors or even Mets news if there's more coming out. Obviously, the Mets. Obviously with the Mets, the whole coaching staff was changed. More discussion about that. Eric Chavez had his comments about Juan Soto or about the offense. We'll talk about that on Friday as well. Friday, we'll talk about Eric Chavez and his comments the other day. I believe it was the Foul Territory podcast. But we'll talk more about Mets rumors. We'll talk more about Raw and SmackDown and TNA and AEW Dynamite. We'll talk more about the playoffs, MLB. As I go on, we'll make a quick prediction. Well, just a quick update, 13-7 Bears in the second quarter. I think the Falcons are still leading the Bills. They're in currently commercial break. Quick checkup on the Brewers and the Dodgers game. Quick checkup on that. It is 1-0 Dodgers in the top of the 6th. 1-0 Dodgers in the top of the 6th. Looks like a Freddie Freeman home run. Freddie Freeman home run. Freddie Freeman solo home run at the top of the 6th inning to finally break the ice. And it's 1-0 Dodgers in the top of the 6th in game 1 of the NLCS. So that'll be it for today's edition of MazzaOnSports. I've been Evan Mazza. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening. Give this video a like, share, and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. We will be back for more MazzaOnSports. Looking for Friday. Look out for Friday for the next show. If I want to jump in during the week, if there's a big breaking news story or so, a big news story, I'll certainly hop on and we'll talk about it. But right now, I'm looking for Friday night for the show after SmackDown. Thank you guys so much for tuning after WWE SmackDown. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Have yourselves a great day, or a great night, I should say. We'll see you on Friday.